Hidden angelic secrets and forbidden Vatican truths have remained concealed until now. For generations, they've been buried beneath stone floors and locked behind iron doors within the world's most influential religious institution, in the silent corridors of church authority. Ancient texts and forgotten celestial beings still murmur from secret chambers, protected more by fear than by faith. These discoveries are not mere legends. They reveal aspects of history that were deliberately concealed, hidden away by Vatican authorities. If you're fascinated by such enigmas, be sure to follow for more. Now, get comfortable, close your eyes, and let the tale unfold. In the silent core of Vatican City, where ancient stones seem to vibrate with the past and footsteps vanish into quiet, a single name resonates through every shrine, every sculpture, every whispered devotion: Michael, the Archangel, the celestial champion, heaven's protector. His name is spoken with reverence, often alongside Gabriel and Raphael. These three angelic messengers are well known to most. They appear in the Bible, in stained glass windows, and in the ancient tomes of monasteries. Yet, for all that is revealed, much remains veiled. Centuries ago, the Church officially recognized only these three by name. Eventually, it was declared that these were the only angels to be known. But in earlier eras, things were different. Lost manuscripts, either abandoned or carefully preserved, mention other angels. Some sources speak of 7, others describe 72 mysterious, powerful names. Uriel, Raguel, Sariel. Names that once filled prayers appeared in ancient scrolls and were woven into early religious practices. At the Council of Rome in the 8th century, most of these names vanished. Not simply forgotten, but intentionally erased. People were uneasy about naming what they could not comprehend. Church leaders feared that acknowledging too many angels might lead to misguided worship or invoking the wrong spirits. Thus, boundaries were drawn. Texts were restricted, names were silenced. Only Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael remained. Michael the Protector. His name means "who is like God." He is always depicted as armed. The Book of Revelation shows him battling evil. Gabriel, the herald, announced Mary's divine conception. Raphael the healer guided young Tobias through peril and illness in the lesser-known Book of Tobit. But what became of the others? What about those celestial beings, whose names once filled pages now missing from sacred texts? Several are found in the Book of Enoch, an ancient manuscript rejected by the Catholic Church. Once widely read, Enoch describes groups of angels who descended to earth, imparted forbidden knowledge, and suffered dire consequences. These are the Watchers. Their tale is one the Church prefers not to revisit. Deep within the Vatican's archives, records of these names persist. They are not lost, merely safeguarded. Perhaps for protection, perhaps for power, or perhaps because some secrets are best left unspoken. Yet the names endure, quietly preserved in ancient writings behind locked doors, accessible only to a select few. In Christianity's early days, long before mass-printed Bibles and modern doctrine, believers recognized not just 3 angels, but 7. These 7 were believed to stand before God's throne, each with a unique role and voice. Their names were passed down orally, inscribed in old ink on parchment, and etched into forgotten corners of chapels. Some names still linger in whispers. Uriel, Angel of Wisdom. Remiel, Bringer of Mercy. Sariel, Guardian of Spirits. Yet, over time, these names began to fade. The Church underwent transformation. By the 8th century, leaders feared what they called improper devotion. Too many prayed to angels they barely understood, following names not found in official scripture. At the Roman Council in 745, bishops made a decision. From that point, only 3 angels would be officially recognized. All others, they decreed, would remain unnamed. Why did the Church choose this path? Some say it was to protect the faithful from confusion. Others suspect deeper motives, that the names themselves held power, that uttering them opened doors the church wished to keep closed. One name was central to this quiet erasure: Uriel. Early Christian texts once honoured him, sometimes depicting him with weapons or scrolls. Eastern churches continued to remember and portray Uriel in gold. But in the West, especially in Rome, he gradually vanished. His name left prayers, his image was hidden, his presence faded until it was gone. Yet not all records have disappeared from the Vatican's deepest vaults. Beyond the rooms known to most scholars, texts still exist listing the 7 archangels by name. Some are handwritten books from the 4th and 5th centuries, locked behind iron bars. They are not fabrications, they are history, kept silent. There are also records of prayers, brief, careful lines penned by monks who seemed intimately familiar with these angels. Phrases like "Protect me, O Uriel, from unseen flames," or "Grant your compassion, O Remiel, in the hour of sorrow." Simple words once murmured by candlelight in cold stone chapels. Today, most Catholics never hear these names at Mass. They are absent from official prayer books and catechisms. But once they were present, and they still rest, silent and patient, in the Vatican's hidden places. Some say the Church chose to forget them. Others claim the angels themselves withdrew. Whatever the reason, their presence lingers just beneath what we are permitted to know. There was a time when angelic names were freely spoken in early Christian gatherings. Believers would meet by torchlight and discuss these divine messengers not just as heavenly beings, but as guardians and guides with names known and cherished. But something changed within the church's walls, and it was no accident. It was a deliberate decision by those who feared the unknown's power. In 745, at the Council of Rome, the Church made an official declaration. Only 3 angels would be recognised by name: Michael, Gabriel, and Raphael. All others, regardless of tradition or affection, were to be removed from prayers, services, and memory. It was a quiet erasure, accomplished not with fire, but with silence. The official reason was straightforward. Church leaders feared that naming angels beyond the sacred 3 might cause confusion, or worse, lead to the worship of beings not sanctioned by Scripture. But beneath this, many believed there was more. Some argue that the other angelic names came from older sources, from books excluded from the official canon. Like the Book of Enoch, these texts spoke of angels who defied their place, who descended to earth, who taught humanity forbidden secrets. And the Church, perhaps wisely, closed that door. This was not a decision made lightly. Documents from the era describe heated debates, monks and bishops arguing by candlelight, scrolls spread across worn tables. Some believed removing the names would protect the faith. Others warned that forgetting angelic names might also mean losing their protection. Notes from this time even mention visions, dreams of winged figures at the edges of firelit halls, their names fading as they tried to speak. The council's decision held. From then on, Western churches followed the new rule. Statues were removed, writings were recopied, this time omitting certain names. And gradually, over generations, the angels who once stood beside Michael faded into silence. Yet the Vatican did not destroy everything in its archives. Hidden among ancient texts are letters and scrolls mentioning these forbidden names. Some were written before the council, others were copied by those who remembered and could not forget. These documents were not shared, but they were not burned. They were locked away in case the world might one day need to remember. And so the names remain, even now, waiting in the darkness. Not lost, just hidden, their wings no longer carved in stone, but their presence still lingers in quiet places where light and shadow meet. Long before the Bible was compiled and printed as we know it, stories of angels were scattered across many writings. Some became part of Scripture, Others were set aside, labelled apocryphal or quietly hidden. Among these lost texts were books telling stories the Church would later find too strange, too dangerous, or too difficult to control. In those forgotten pages, angels were not just messengers or protectors. They were watchers, warriors, and sometimes rebels. In the accepted biblical books, angels appear briefly and with purpose. Gabriel delivers messages, Michael leads battles, Raphael brings healing. Their roles are clear, but limited. There is little explanation of their origins, their nature, or their world. But in the books left out of the canon, like Jubilees and Enoch, angels are everywhere. They have ranks, names, and missions. Some walk the earth, some fall in love, some rebel. The Book of Enoch is a striking example. This ancient text, once cherished by early Christians, tells of a group of angels called the Watchers. Assigned to watch over humanity, they chose instead to descend to earth. They taught forbidden knowledge, such as weapon-making and magical herbs. They took human wives. Their offspring became giants. The world grew wild and dark. The Church could not ignore such tales. Over time, it moved to suppress them. The Book of Enoch was declared unofficial. Its teachings were said to mislead or confuse, yet it was never entirely lost. It continued to be copied in monasteries, preserved in Eastern libraries, and quietly passed from hand to hand. Some scholars believe the Vatican still holds some of the oldest copies, locked away in its archives. They are not displayed, they are protected. Even though these texts were rejected, their influence remains. Art, sculpture, and poetry throughout Christian history contain echoes of these ancient angelic stories. A figure with too many wings, a sword of fire, a child too large for any cradle. These details may seem minor, but they point to stories never truly erased. The line between accepted scripture and hidden texts is thin, sometimes drawn not by truth, but by fear. Fear of questions, of power beyond understanding, of stories that open doors best left closed. But the angels in these stories remain, their names half remembered, their wings folded in silence. And in the quiet of the Vatican libraries, under layers of dust and time, their stories wait. Not lost, but guarded. Not spoken aloud, but never truly forgotten. Hidden in the shadows of old belief is a book the Church never fully accepted, but also never completely abandoned. It is called the Book of Enoch, and within its pages are some of the most unsettling angelic tales ever written. Though not part of the official Catholic Bible, this book was once read by early Christians and even quoted in other scriptures. Today, it is rarely mentioned from the pulpit, but deep within the Vatican, copies are said to be kept under careful watch. The Book of Enoch tells a story the Church has long struggled with. It begins with light, with heavenly visions and divine order. But soon, the story darkens. A group of angels called the Watchers are sent to observe the world. They watch humanity and grow curious. And then, something stronger. Defying their orders, they descend to earth. There, they teach not holy lessons, but forbidden ones. The Watchers show humans how to forge weapons. They teach them to mix potions and cast spells. They reveal secrets of the stars and the heavens. These teachings, though full of knowledge, are said to bring great harm. The world becomes violent, twisted by power never meant for mortals. And then comes the most disturbing part. The angels take human wives. Their children become giants, beings too large and wild to control. This story, strange and powerful, does not appear in the Bible most know, yet it was once widely accepted. For a time it shaped how many viewed angels, not just as holy servants, but as beings with free will, capable of falling. By the 4th century, church leaders began to distance themselves from this account. The Book of Enoch was excluded from the canon. Some said it was too strange, too dangerous. Others believed it revealed things best left unsaid. Even so, the Vatican never completely destroyed it. Copies were preserved, studied by a few trusted scholars, hidden in the shadows of the archive. The story endured. Deep within those rooms, behind thick doors and heavy walls, are scrolls with angelic names found nowhere else. Names tied to fire, wind, judgment, and loss. Names of angels who turned from heaven and left their mark on earth. The Vatican has never confirmed how many versions of the Book of Enoch it possesses or their age, but there are whispers among researchers, quiet rumours of a version older than any other, bound in leather and sealed in glass. Why keep a book once rejected? Perhaps because, despite its danger, in modern times the Church remains largely silent on this subject. It acknowledges the existence of angels and encourages simple, faithful prayer, but little more. Yet deep beneath the stones of St. Peter's, an ancient book may still lie, shrouded in dust and secrecy, sealed away, not for the merely curious, but for a time of true necessity. Ancient warnings say that to speak an angel's name is to summon it, and there are names the Vatican would rather the world never utter again. Within the Vatican there is a corridor few have ever entered. The air is chilly even in the height of summer, and the scent of ancient parchment lingers like incense. Heavy shelves are lined with leather-bound tomes, some untitled, others inscribed in forgotten tongues. Hidden among these shelves, behind unmarked drawers and beneath layers of sealed documents, are writings that hint at something both strange and quietly powerful. An alphabet, not of humans but of angels. The concept of an angelic language is not new. It appears in mystical writings from Christianity's earliest days and even earlier in the secret teachings of Jewish sages and early Christians. This language, they believed, was not just a means of communication, but something far more sacred and pure. It was said to be the original language of heaven, spoken by angels before the world began. Some believed that those who could read it might unlock the secrets of creation itself. One name is often linked to this enigma, Enoch. In the same ancient text once set aside by the Church, Enoch is described as having been taught the language of heaven by angels. He recorded symbols, sounds, and meanings never before known to humankind. The book claims Enoch did not die, but was taken by angels into the presence of God. He left behind writings, many of which faded with time. Yet some may have found their way into the Vatican's archives. There are quiet reports from researchers who once had limited access to the apostolic library. They describe a manuscript written in a script unlike any known alphabet. The symbols are delicate and curved, some drawn in gold, others in faded black, as if the scribe's hand trembled with reverence. The pages are thin, fragrant with age, and no one has ever fully deciphered them. One legend tells of a Jesuit scholar in the 17th century who tried. He spent over a decade studying the symbols, convinced they belonged to the angelic alphabet. When asked what he had learned, he replied only, "Each letter sang, and reading a single word aloud brought silence to the room." A few months later, the scholar fell ill and died before completing his work. His notes were taken by the Vatican and never seen again. Whether this alphabet truly belonged to angels is a question the Church has never answered, but the idea persists, in art, in whispers, and in secret rooms where symbols glow in candlelight. Perhaps it is not meant to be read. Perhaps it serves only to remind us that not all messages are for human eyes. Some truths are best left unspoken. In the Vatican's silent chambers, where candlelight glimmers on the spines of ancient books, the voice of St. Thomas Aquinas still echoes. The 13th century scholar wrote with a mind as sharp as a blade and a heart devoted to faith. His Summa Theologica is renowned worldwide. Yet within its many pages he addressed a subject with meticulous care: heavenly beings. Aquinas did not merely describe them as divine messengers. He sought to understand their hierarchies, functions, and structure, as if mapping a realm of splendour beyond mortal sight. He organized the heavenly hosts into 9 orders within 3 choirs. At the summit were the seraphim, cherubim, and thrones, dwelling in God's immediate presence. The middle choir consisted of dominations, virtues, and powers who directed heavenly movements and maintained cosmic harmony. The lowest choir included principalities, archangels, and angels, those who interact with humanity. This was not idle speculation. Aquinas wrote with such clarity and conviction that he seemed to be recording reality, not merely theorizing. The Church adopted much of his teaching, and his works remain foundational in theological study. Yet, some aspects of his scholarship are rarely discussed. In subtle passages, Aquinas suggested that angels moved at unimaginable speeds, possessed knowledge beyond human comprehension, and could communicate directly with souls without words. He also hinted that some heavenly beings might serve purposes still hidden from humanity, roles unknown even to saints and prophets. These words, though preserved, are often left unspoken, for they raise more questions than answers. In the Vatican archives, copies of Aquinas' writings in his own hand survive. Researchers note that these manuscripts contain marginal notes, brief Latin phrases never published. One passage describes an experience during prayer when Aquinas perceived what he called a soundless voice, a light without flame. He did not elaborate, he simply recorded it as a blessing, one he felt could not be shared with the world. The Vatican has guarded these documents closely, allowing only select scholars to view them, perhaps because they reveal something that transcends theology and enters the realm of pure mystery. If Aquinas, the Church's greatest thinker, hinted at experiences beyond written knowledge, what other secrets did he keep? What else is hidden in those quiet margins? His influence, though centuries old, still speaks through those pages. He gave humanity a framework for understanding heavenly beings, yet he also left spaces where certainty could not reach. Within those spaces, the Vatican keeps its most closely guarded mysteries, those about angels that even Aquinas could not fully comprehend. Deep within the Vatican, beyond guarded doors and beneath centuries of accumulated wisdom, shelves hold not only the writings of saints, but also humanity's quiet attempts to understand the organization of heaven. Among these collections lies a subject that has always hovered at the edge of faith, the doctrine of the 9 celestial orders. Passed down in whispers, developed by theologians and illustrated in manuscript margins, it has never been fully explained. From church pulpits, these orders are presented as a shining ladder, 9 ranks of beings who move between the divine and the earthly, each with distinct roles and purposes. The highest orders, it is said, dwell closest to God's throne. Seraphim, cherubim, and thrones, radiant and filled with wisdom beyond comprehension. Below them, dominations, virtues, and powers carry out the design of creation. They act as cosmic guardians, directing the stars, shaping movements and maintaining balance where human eyes cannot see. Closer to humanity are principalities, archangels, and angels. These walk among us, protecting nations, guiding souls, and delivering messages through dreams and visions. This structure was popularized by Saint Dionysius and later refined by Aquinas. Yet, in the Vatican's archives, manuscripts suggest that the story of the 9 orders is only part of a greater whole. Ancient texts hint at hidden orders, unnamed beings whose identities were never revealed to the public. Scholars who glimpsed these writings reported entire sections left blank, as if names had been deliberately omitted or written in symbols too sacred to reveal. There are also notes, fragile with age, that speak of fear. One monk wrote that naming the orders too precisely might draw them nearer, and that humanity was not ready to see their true forms. Another account tells of a cardinal's vision during night prayers in the 15th century. He described not 9 orders, but 10. He claimed their voices filled the chapel, bringing both harmony and warning, though he dared not record the name of the highest order. Today, the Church teaches the 9 orders gently as lessons in structure and devotion, but the deeper writings remain hidden, locked away in silence. Perhaps this shields the faithful from confusion, or perhaps truly, knowing the orders would reveal too much of the unseen. Thus the Vatican allows only vague outlines of this heavenly hierarchy to be known, while the full truth remains concealed behind iron doors and forgotten ink. When visitors enter the Sistine Chapel, their eyes are drawn to Michelangelo's vast ceiling. The creation of Adam dominates the centre, hands reaching for each other in an image known around the world. But a closer look uncovers mysteries within the painting, not just the famous hands, but background figures, faces and wings at the edges. The angels of the Sistine Chapel are not mere decoration. They hold secrets that have puzzled scholars for centuries. Michelangelo was more than an artist. He was a student of ancient texts, spending countless hours with scripture and the writings of early church fathers. He understood official angelic doctrine, but he also knew of forbidden stories, quietly preserved in books not read aloud. Some believe he painted hints of these lost tales onto the chapel walls, visible only to the patient and observant. Many of his angels do not resemble the cherubic figures of popular art. They are strong, human-like, and almost unsettling. Their faces are intense, their bodies muscular, their presence weighty, more like guardians than gentle messengers. Many lack wings, resembling the watchers described in the Book of Enoch more than traditional church angels. This detail is subtle but intentional, leading some to think Michelangelo revealed more than he should have. In one section, angels cluster around God as he separates light from darkness. Hidden in their forms are outlines that some art historians say resemble letters, as if the angelic language itself was woven into the fresco. These claims remain unproven, and the Vatican has never commented. Yet speculation endures. Did Michelangelo embed traces of a language not meant for human eyes? Or did his brush simply follow inspiration? There is also the Last Judgment, painted years later on the altar wall. Here, angels wield swords, trumpets, and chains. They guide souls upward and drag others downward. It is a vision of angels as warriors and enforcers, echoing ancient writings the Church seldom discusses. The Vatican allows millions to see these images, but explains them only through scripture. For those who sit quietly beneath the frescoes, the chapel itself seems to whisper. Angels are present, their eyes watchful, their forms holding stories that paint cannot fully tell. Perhaps this is the greatest secret of all. The Sistine Chapel is not just a place of worship, it is a vault of hidden truths, written not in books, but in colour and stone. In Rome, the name Gian Lorenzo Bernini is spoken with reverence. His art animates the city, turning stone into something almost alive. Among his most famous works are the angels he sculpted for the bridge to St. Peter's Basilica. At first, they appear as beautiful guardians, wings spread, faces serene. But for those who pause and look closer, Bernini's angels seem to tell deeper stories than their marble forms suggest. Each angel holds an instrument of the Passion, reminders of Christ's suffering. One carries the cross, another the crown of thorns, another holds the nails. Their expressions are solemn, eyes downcast as if bearing a burden beyond stone. Scholars have long debated the meaning of these angels. Why do beings of light carry symbols of pain? Why do their faces seem not just holy, but troubled? Bernini was more than a sculptor. He was deeply connected to the Vatican, commissioned by popes, entrusted with projects that defined an... He offered no further details, only noting that the angel was kept in darkness for most of the year, brought out solely for select papal prayers. If this account holds any truth, the golden angel was far more than a mere artistic masterpiece. It may have been regarded as a vessel of power, a symbol shrouded in secrecy, too enigmatic for public veneration. Rumours persist that an inscription lies beneath the angel's base, written in symbols unrecognisable to ordinary scholars. Some claim these are characters from the angelic alphabet, the same script said to have been revealed to Enoch. The Vatican has never verified this, and the statue is almost never seen. Whenever the papal treasures are displayed, the golden angel is always missing, locked away behind closed doors. For those who believe its secrecy is meaningful, the question lingers. Why protect a statue so fiercely if it were just another relic? Why keep its existence hidden unless it hints at stories the Church would rather remain untold? The golden angel keeps its silence, its golden face carved with sorrow and warning. Whether it is simply a precious artifact or a silent witness to secrets buried for centuries, only the Vatican knows for sure. And so it waits in the treasury, unseen but never forgotten by those who whisper its legend. Deep within the Vatican, among treasures never shown to the public, it is said a golden angel is concealed in the papal treasury. Unlike the renowned statues that grace bridges and chapels, this figure is not on display for pilgrims. Instead, it rests in a chamber of guarded relics among saints' remains and royal gifts. Few have spoken of it openly, and those who have do so with a mix of reverence and unease. The angel, reportedly no larger than a child, is sculpted entirely from gold, its wings outstretched and feathers rendered with astonishing detail. Yet its face is not the peaceful visage seen in paintings. Instead, it wears an expression that is hard to define, somewhere between grief and warning. Its eyes are carved so deeply that some witnesses claim they seem alive, following viewers wherever they move. Legends claim the statue arrived in Rome during the High Middle Ages, brought by pilgrims from the East. Some say it was once kept in a church destroyed by fire, rescued and sent to the Vatican for protection. Others insist it was not crafted by human hands at all, but discovered in a sealed tomb, its gold untouched by time. Centuries later, these tales remain unproven, but they continue to swirl around the golden angel like shadows around a candle. In the 15th century, a cardinal wrote to a fellow churchman, describing the angel as a guardian of an unspoken truth. He gave no further explanation, only that the angel was kept in darkness, brought out only for certain papal prayers. If this is true, the golden angel was more than a work of art. It may have been seen as a vessel of power, a symbol too mysterious for public devotion. Rumours say the angel bears an inscription on its base, written in characters unknown to ordinary scholars. Some believe these are letters from the angelic alphabet, the same ones said to have been taught to Enoch. The Vatican has never confirmed this, and the statue is rarely displayed. When the papal treasures are shown, the golden angel is always missing, kept behind closed doors. For those who see meaning in its secrecy, the question remains, why guard a statue so zealously if it were just another relic? Why keep its presence hidden unless it points to stories the Church prefers to keep secret? The golden angel remains silent, its face of sorrow and warning sculpted in gold. Whether a simple treasure or a silent witness to truths hidden for centuries, only the Vatican knows. And so it waits in the treasury, unseen but never forgotten by those who whisper its name. Within the Vatican, there are prayers that have never appeared in any prayer book or been spoken during Mass. Among these is one known only to a select few, a prayer addressed to what is called the guardian angel of the Church. This prayer is said to be older than most liturgies, whispered in secret by popes and bishops during times of grave peril. It does not appear in catechisms or official missals. For centuries, it has remained hidden, passed quietly from hand to hand in fragile manuscripts. The idea that the Church itself has a guardian angel is not entirely foreign. Scripture often mentions angels who protect nations and guide peoples. But the prayer found in the Vatican archives goes further. It speaks of a single, mighty angel, charged with watching over the entire church through wars, persecutions, and betrayals. The words, written in Latin, call upon this angel to defend the bride of Christ from darkness and fire, to guard the holy city, and to strike down what the text calls the serpent of division. No one outside the Vatican has heard the full prayer, yet fragments have surfaced in letters from monks who once copied it by hand. A 13th century Benedictine monk wrote that while transcribing certain sacred words, the room fell silent as if invisible presences had gathered. In the 17th century, another cleric noted in his diary that this prayer resurfaced during times of division within the church, when its very foundations seemed threatened. He described it as a plea reserved for the darkest hours, recited by candlelight in the Pope's presence. The Vatican has never admitted to keeping such a prayer, but evidence lingers. Some say it was whispered during the sack of Rome in 1527, when invaders threatened the heart of Christianity. Others believe it was spoken again during World War II, as bombs fell near the Holy City. Whether true or not, this prayer remains hidden from the faithful. Why would the Church guard these words so closely? Perhaps because they were never meant for daily worship. To address an angel watching over the entire church could suggest an authority greater than that of the saints. Such prayers might blur the line between worship and reverence, between the divine and its messengers. The Church has always been wary of such dangerous ground. Still, the prayer waits in secret, preserved for moments of dire crisis. If ever spoken in full, it could remind humanity that angels guard not just individuals, but the very soul of faith, unseen, ever vigilant, watching over the Vatican through centuries of darkness. Deep within the Vatican's collections are volumes few will ever see, books without titles moved to private altars under armed guard. Among them is a small exorcism manual created in medieval times and preserved through generations. This is not the familiar Roman ritual known to priests worldwide, but something different. Within its pages, a missing section is said to exist, a page transcribed, erased, and finally sealed. Those aware of its existence whisper that it was not about demons, but about angels. The story of this missing page first appears in 16th century records, when a Jesuit priest wrote of a ritual prayer meant to invoke angelic aid during exorcisms. He claimed it was not a plea for divine help, but a direct call to Michael, Gabriel, and a third angel, whose name was written and then removed. According to his letters, this prayer was so powerful that the possessed would be freed instantly or collapse as if dead. The priest noted that the Church quickly forbade it in use, fearing that invoking angels so directly could cross forbidden boundaries. Centuries later, a scholar with access to the archives noticed a gap in the exorcism manual, a blank space where a page had clearly been cut out. The stitching was uneven, as if the removal had been deliberate. No explanation was given, but faint Latin notes remained in the margin. One phrase translates as never again to be spoken. Another simply reads, "Names bring danger." Why would the Vatican remove an angelic prayer from a book meant to fight evil? Perhaps it implied too much control, too much certainty in human hands. Invoking angels by their secret names, as some traditions taught, risked wielding a power meant only for heaven. The Church feared such risks. Better to erase the page than allow its misuse. Yet the page was not destroyed. Some believe it was hidden in the deepest archives with other forbidden texts. Rumours persist that fragments survive in handwritten copies kept by certain religious orders, though no one admits it openly. Missing page remains a quiet Vatican enigma. Was it a prayer too dangerous to exist? A key to powers never meant for mortals? Or a reminder that even in the fight against darkness, there are limits? Whatever the truth, the absence of that page speaks volumes. A silence protected in the shadows for centuries. Whispers circulate in the Vatican about a prayer once reserved for the Pope alone, a brief invocation to Saint Michael the Archangel. Not the familiar prayer recited after Mass, but something ancient, sealed for centuries and hidden from the faithful. This invocation, as it is called in fragments and rumour, was said to possess a power not of comfort but of command. It was not a gentle plea for protection, but a charge that summoned Michael to act with fire against the forces of darkness. The earliest mention of this prayer comes from the 15th century, when a bishop wrote to a colleague about a document kept in the papal chancery. He described it as words so potent they could not be spoken without fear. He claimed it was given to the Pope in a vision and spoken aloud only once, on a night when Rome trembled under threat of invasion. The city was spared, though history records little about the prayer itself. The bishop ended his letter with a warning: "This must remain sealed, for no man can handle it without trembling." Later Vatican records mention it again. A 17th century scholar cataloguing ancient manuscripts wrote of a prayer in which Michael is called not only Prince of the Heavenly Host, but also Guardian of the Hidden Flame. These words do not appear in prayers taught to the faithful. The scholar noted that the parchment had been copied many times, as if carefully preserved through the ages. But after his notes, nothing more was written. The manuscript vanished from public inventories. Some say the invocation was more than words. It may have contained Michael's true name, one of the secret names erased by church councils long ago. To speak it, no matter what the reality may be, the Midnight Visitor remains one of the Vatican's most enigmatic secrets, a tale etched into the silence of a single night and hidden ever since. There exists a legend, spoken only in hushed tones, about a choir once heard within the Vatican's walls but never seen. This story comes from the journals of priests who served in the Grand Basilica centuries ago. Men who claimed they stood in empty chapels and yet heard voices singing. These were not ordinary voices, but harmonies so flawless and intricate that no human choir could have produced them. The music seemed to emanate from the very stones, at first faint, then swelling to fill the space with melodies that moved the soul in ways words could not describe. The earliest record of this phenomenon dates to the 14th century, when a monk wrote of voices of light singing during the midnight office. He noted that no singers were present, yet every man in the choir turned their heads at once. The melody soared and fell with unearthly beauty. When the monks tried to join in, their voices faltered as if the song was not meant for human lips. The music faded, leaving only silence and the trembling of those who had heard it. Centuries later, in 1681, another account surfaced. A Swiss guard on night duty in the chapel reported hearing a choir above him. As he patrolled, he searched every corner, convinced the singers were hidden in the loft, but he found nothing. His captain dismissed the report, but soon others came forward with similar claims. The Vatican quietly documented these incidents, but never discussed them outside closed circles. Some scholars argue these voices were simply echoes or tricks of acoustics. The chapels of Rome, with their marble and gold, carry sound in mysterious ways. Yet those who heard the mysterious choir insisted the music was unlike any echo. It brought warmth, clarity, and something deeper. Each note seemed to carry meaning beyond words. One priest wrote that listening brought him both peace and sorrow, as if the singing offered comfort and warning at once. The Vatican never declared these events to be visions or miracles. Instead, they were left unspoken, preserved in handwritten notes and private diaries. Perhaps the Church feared that acknowledging them would invite speculation it could not control. Or perhaps the voices were considered real, but too sacred to share openly. The choir has not been heard in recent times, or if it has, no public record exists. Still, the story is whispered among those who spend long hours in the Vatican's oldest chapels. They say that on the stillest nights you might catch a fleeting harmony too perfect for this world, a song belonging to unseen angels. Among the Vatican's many whispered mysteries, one tale stands out for its darkness. It tells of a Swiss guard who, after a night vigil in the Apostolic Palace, was never the same. His name was briefly recorded in the archives, then erased, but fragments of his story survive in scattered notes and letters. He was young, disciplined, and trusted to patrol the halls where popes and cardinals slept. Yet after one particular night, he refused to speak of what he had witnessed, and soon after, he was dismissed from service, under a silence that has never been broken. The event is said to have occurred in the early 18th century. The guard was making his rounds past a chapel locked for the night when he heard a sound inside. Expecting intruders, he unbarred the heavy doors. What he claimed to see was not thieves or priests, but a figure at the altar, glowing faintly as if lit from within, with wings arched above, brushing the shadows on the ceiling. The guard later told a confessor that the air itself seemed to tremble, and the figure's face was both beautiful and terrifying. He dropped his halberd and fell to his knees. No words were spoken. Instead, a dense, absolute silence filled the chapel. The guard remained frozen until the figure faded away, leaving only the sanctuary lamp's faint glow. Shaken, he fled and vowed never to return. The next day, his fellow guards noticed his pale face and trembling hands. He could not hold his weapon or walk the halls alone. When questioned, he gave no clear answers. Only in confession did he reveal the vision of the winged being. His priest recorded the account and quietly sent it to the Vatican archives, where it was sealed. The guard was soon relieved of duty and ordered to leave. Nothing more is known of him. Why would such a story be hidden? The Vatican has always been cautious with visions, preferring to confirm only those that inspire faith, not fear. An angel appearing to a soldier in silence with no message or mission would raise questions too difficult to answer. Was it truly an angel or something else? Was it a blessing or a warning? The Swiss guard's story lingers only as a shadow, his name forgotten, his fate unknown. Yet among those who study Vatican mysteries, his tale is one of the most unsettling. If true, it suggests that angels do not always bring comfort or joy. Sometimes they appear in silence, leaving behind a presence that changes a life forever, even if no one dares speak of it again. Within the Apostolic Palace is a chamber known as the Room of Tears, where every newly elected pope retreats after accepting the keys of St. Peter. It is a small, quiet space where the weight of the papacy settles on one man's shoulders in solitude. Most details of what happens there are shrouded in secrecy, spoken only in whispers. Among the many stories preserved in Vatican history, one has disturbed historians for centuries. A narrative some believe describes an encounter not with mortals, but with a celestial being. A 17th century letter, written by a cardinal close to the Pope and kept in the archives, recounts the story of a pope who emerged from the Room of Tears visibly shaken. His face was ashen, his hands trembled, and his eyes reflected both awe and terror. When questioned by his closest advisors, he revealed that during his time alone in the chamber, he had not been alone at all. A figure appeared surrounded by a glow, its wings unfurled in utter silence. The being spoke no words. Instead, it pressed its hand to his chest, and in that moment he felt the immense burden of his new role. He understood it was not a blessing, but a warning, a sign that he had been chosen under divine scrutiny and could never escape the watchful eyes of heaven. The cardinal who recorded this encounter never revealed the Pope's identity, though the timing suggests it happened in the early 1600s. The Vatican has never acknowledged the story, but it survives in whispered conversations among scholars who study the secret traditions of papal succession. The Room of Tears, with its simple furnishings and ceremonial vestments, is a place of transformation. But if this account is true, it may also be a space where heaven itself draws near. Other popes have left the chamber showing clear signs of distress, some weeping, others too overwhelmed to speak. Many believe this is a natural reaction to the enormous responsibility, but those who know the old stories hint at something deeper. Perhaps angels have always been present in that room, silently watching as each man accepts his destiny, reminding him that his choices will echo for eternity. The Vatican keeps the Room of Tears accessible to only a select few, and its secrets remain hidden. Yet the stories persist, unspoken in public, but preserved in whispered confidences. If an angel truly waits in that chamber, then every pope begins his reign not only under human eyes, but under the eternal gaze of heaven, touched by a presence impossible to ignore. In the 12th century, an Irish bishop named St. Malachy travelled to Rome to strengthen ties with the Church, but legend says he returned with more than a papal blessing. According to records from the years that followed, Malachy received a vision during his stay in the Holy City, a vision in which an angel revealed the future of the papacy itself. The angel showed him a long line of popes stretching far ahead, each identified by a phrase or symbol hinting at their reign. The prophecy, as it became known, described over 100 future successors of St. Peter. Some phrases were clear, like "from the lily flower" or "the angelic shepherd." Others were cryptic, such as "the persecuted pope." Scholars have debated for generations whether these lines were true predictions or clever inventions, but legend holds that the source was an angel who appeared to Malachy in Rome, wordless but radiant, who placed the burden of the future upon him and then vanished, leaving Malachy shaken. When the document surfaced publicly in the late 1500s, long after Malachy's death, it caused great controversy. Many found the list too accurate to be fake. Others argued it was written after the events. Yet, with each new pope, the world returned to the prophecy, matching the descriptions to the man in white. The Vatican has never officially endorsed the prophecy, but neither has it fully dismissed it. Some descriptions seem to fit remarkably well. One pope, called "from the half of the moon," was elected during a lunar eclipse. Another, "the glory of the olive," belonged to an order symbolized by the olive branch. Whether by chance or design, these connections have fueled belief that Malachy truly saw what an angel revealed. The most disturbing part of the prophecy is its ending. The final entry describes a pope who will lead the Church through great tribulations, after which Rome will face divine judgment. No name is given, only the image of a shepherd amid destruction. This last passage has caused anxiety in every generation, raising questions about whether it signals the end of the papacy or even the end of the age. The Vatican discourages discussion of Malachy's vision, yet the document remains in its archives. Some say secrecy protects the faithful from fear. Others suspect the prophecy, if real, reveals more than the Church is willing to admit. Regardless, St. Malachy's vision endures as one of the strangest angelic mysteries, a silent shadow in Vatican history. Among the most mysterious events linked to the Vatican are the visions of Fatima, where 3 shepherd children in Portugal claimed to see a lady clothed in light. The world remembers the secrets of Fatima, but less discussed is a detail found in the writings of one of the seers. Before the lady appeared, an angel is said to have visited them, preparing their souls for what was to come. This angel, often called the angel, the memory of this lingered long after the music faded, leaving him unsettled and disturbed. The Vatican has never confirmed these stories, nor have any official documents been released. Yet the tale persists among those who study the Church's hidden writings. If there's any truth to it, it suggests that angels don't just appear in visions or remain silent. Sometimes they might choose to sing, their voices echoing through stone corridors, heard only by one man, reminding him that heaven is always watching and listening. Deep within the Vatican lies a library so vast and enigmatic that it has captivated scholars for centuries. Its formal name is Archivum Secretum, often misinterpreted as secret archive. In reality, secretum means private, but the air of secrecy remains. Behind its imposing doors are endless rows of ancient manuscripts, letters and texts spanning over a millennium. Among these, it's rumoured, are documents about angels never revealed to the public. The Church has always spoken of angels in scripture, sermons and the writings of saints. But within the Archivum Secretum, it's said there are records that go further, accounts of encounters, and visions the Vatican has chosen to keep hidden. These aren't the familiar tales of Michael or Gabriel, but stories of lesser-known angels, their names and deeds preserved in faded ink. Some of these names were once banned by church councils, removed from liturgy to prevent misuse, yet they may still lie quietly in the archive's depths. A 17th century scholar who briefly glimpsed the collection described a leather-bound manuscript sealed with iron, titled in Latin as The Watchers. The Watchers, figures from the Book of Enoch, are angels said to have walked the earth and erred. The Church has long avoided discussing them publicly, fearing confusion or heresy. But if such a book exists in the Vatican, it means the story was never truly lost, just concealed. Another tale tells of a letter from a missionary in Ethiopia, preserved in the archive, recounting how local Christians spoke of an angel with fiery wings appearing over a mountain. The missionary's report was never published, but rumours say it was carefully filed away, as if the Vatican wanted to keep the account without letting it spread. What makes the Archivum Secretum so intriguing isn't just what it contains, but what it withholds. The Vatican claims the archive is private, not secret, and that scholars can request access to certain sections. In reality, much of it remains off-limits, with only a select few permitted to view its most guarded volumes. Imagining shelves filled with records of angelic encounters inspires both awe and unease. If even a fraction of the rumours are true, the Vatican may possess a far richer history of angels than it has ever shared. The Archivum Secretum is more than a library, it's a vault of mysteries, where the hidden wings of angels may still rest, written in ink and locked behind stone, waiting for a world that may never be allowed to see them. Among the Vatican's archived papers, there's said to be a letter that was written, but never sent. Allegedly composed by a pope in the early 1800s, it was addressed to a fellow bishop and spoke candidly about angels. Unlike sermons or official writings, this was a personal reflection, where the Pope confessed to experiences he couldn't easily explain. The letter describes nights spent in prayer, sensing the presence of unseen guardians in his chamber. He recounted moments when he heard whispers of encouragement and warning, voices distinct from his own thoughts. At one point he wrote that the air seemed to glow, though no candles were lit, and he felt as if wings moved just beyond his sight. He didn't call these visions, nor did he claim certainty. Instead, he admitted to being torn between wonder and doubt, unsure if he was being guided or tested. The most remarkable part of the letter, it said, is his admission that he wanted to share these experiences with the Church, but feared it would cause unrest. The faithful might demand answers he couldn't provide, or worse, seek direct encounters with angels outside of prayer. So he chose not to send the letter, sealing it in his desk. After his death, it was discovered and quietly transferred to the archives, where it remains unread by the world. Some researchers insist such a document exists, though its details are closely guarded. Others believe the story is a myth, invented to suggest that even popes wrestle with mysteries beyond their grasp. The Church's silence has only fueled the intrigue. If this letter truly lies within the secret archives, it would offer a rare glimpse into the private beliefs of one of Christianity's highest leaders, someone who admitted, in writing, to sensing the presence of heavenly beings. Its unsent status deepens the mystery. Was it meant for a single confidant, or simply to unburden his soul. Was it hidden because it revealed too much or not enough? No one knows, and perhaps that's why the story endures. What remains is the image of a wrinkled, sealed letter resting quietly on a Vatican shelf, words about angels written in secret, never delivered, never proclaimed from any pulpit. A silent testament that even in the holiest halls, divine mysteries can be too profound to reveal. In the Vatican's underground chambers, rumours persist of a manuscript unlike any other, supposedly written not with ink, but with fire. The legend claims this document arrived in the Church's care during the Middle Ages, brought to Rome by monks who swore it had fallen from the sky during a storm. The parchment seemed ordinary at first, yet its text glowed faintly, as if inscribed by a fire that left the surface unscathed. The writing has never been deciphered. Some say it's Hebrew, but unlike any known form. Others believe it's the celestial alphabet, symbols thought to possess power beyond human speech. Most curious of all, the characters only appear in darkness. In sunlight, the parchment is blank, but at night, the words shine as if lit from within. A medieval pope is said to have examined this parchment in private, keeping it in a small box near his quarters. Letters from his aide describe finding the Pope awake at night, gazing at the glowing script, his lips moving as if reciting sacred verses. When questioned, the Pope refused to elaborate, but later confided to a trusted cardinal that the text seemed to speak directly to his soul. The cardinal recorded this, noting the Pope trembled as if addressed by divine messengers. The Vatican has never acknowledged the parchment's existence. Yet it appears in old archive inventories. A 17th century entry mentions a fiery parchment reserved for papal viewing. Another refers to a writing that vanishes before mortals but burns before the Almighty. These notes are brief, as if even mentioning such an object was risky. Why keep such a manuscript hidden? Some believe the words themselves hold power. A prayer capable of summoning or commanding angels if spoken aloud. Others think the parchment contains knowledge too perilous for general use, a prophecy or warning meant only for the Church's highest guardian. Whatever its true nature, the Vatican remains silent, never allowing it to be seen or studied outside its walls. The image of a glowing, flame-etched manuscript hidden in the archives captures the imagination. Whether fact or legend, it highlights the mystery surrounding the Vatican's relationship with the divine. If this parchment exists, then somewhere in those protected rooms lies a message that burns with light, waiting for the moment it will be read again. Among the treasures rumoured to be concealed in the Vatican archives, one of the most fascinating is said to be a set of maps, unlike any other. These aren't maps of land or sea, but of the heavens, drawn not with stars, but with angelic forms. It's whispered that these celestial diagrams once belonged to the Knights Templar. When their order was dissolved in the 1300s, the maps were secretly brought to Rome and placed among the Church's most guarded documents. The maps are described as sheets of parchment covered in circles and lines, resembling star charts but marked with names unknown to astronomy. Instead of stars, they show points of light connected by flowing paths, each labelled with titles of ancient angelic orders. At the centre, a name appears that was long forbidden to utter. Another map features a design resembling a vast wing with Latin notes about guardians of the north. Those who claim to have seen these maps say they weren't meant for navigation, but to indicate places where heaven and earth might meet. Moments when the boundary between realms grows thin. Some suggest they were tools for prayer, guiding believers to call on specific angels at certain times or places. Others whisper they were more dangerous, revealing where angels had descended before, and perhaps where they could be summoned again. The Vatican has never confirmed the existence of these maps. Yet, several 17th century scholars mention celestial diagrams kept under lock and key. A Jesuit wrote of maps stored with Templar documents, showing not the earth, but the wings of heaven spread above it. He warned that studying them too closely risked delving into mysteries never meant for human hands. If real, these maps raise unsettling questions. Did the Templars truly communicate with angels, or did they only believe they did? Did they see patterns in the sky others missed, or preserve knowledge from even older sources? The Vatican's decision to guard them suggests that even if they contain truth, it's a truth best kept hidden. The idea of celestial maps lying quietly beneath Rome is both haunting and captivating. They could be relics of medieval imagination, or the closest evidence of humanity's attempt to chart the movements of heavenly beings. Either way, they remain among the notion that those assigned to safeguard humanity could turn against their purpose is deeply unsettling. It raises difficult questions about free will, temptation, and the vulnerability of creation itself. It also suggests that the threats introduced by these fallen guardians may still linger, hidden beneath the layers of history. Perhaps for this reason, the Vatican has chosen to remain silent. The Watchers are seldom referenced in prayers or sermons, yet their presence lingers in the background. If their tale is truly locked away in the Vatican's vaults, it remains sealed, a silent witness to angels who not only observed but participated in humanity's earliest trials. Their legacy is one the Church prefers to leave unnamed, yet it echoes in the margins of forbidden manuscripts. Among the angelic names murmured in ancient texts, one stands out for the silence that surrounds it: Azazel. Described in old writings as both an angel and a corrupter, Azazel is linked to humanity's sins. According to the Book of Enoch, Azazel was one of the Watchers. He is remembered as the one who revealed the secrets of weapon-making and warfare. He taught men to forge swords and shields, spreading violence across the earth. Women, it is said, learned from him about adornments and charms, knowledge seen as bringing vanity and temptation. For these acts, Azazel was cast into the desert, bound until the day of judgment. While this story persisted in Jewish tradition and early Christian texts, the Vatican has remained largely silent about it in official scripture. Azazel's name appears briefly in Leviticus, where a goat was sent into the wilderness for Azazel on the Day of Atonement, symbolically carrying away the people's sins. This ritual eventually gave rise to the term scapegoat. Yet Azazel himself faded from public teaching. The Church avoided his name, choosing to keep it shrouded in mystery. Still, rumours persist that the Vatican holds manuscripts with more detailed accounts of him. Some scholars suggest that hidden in the archives are records from ancient councils where bishops debated whether to acknowledge Azazel or erase him from memory. Others claim that medieval demonologies once listed him among the fallen, but these works were later locked away. His name appears in secret traditions, but rarely in official doctrine, as if he was intentionally erased. Why would the Vatican avoid mentioning him? Perhaps because Azazel's story blurs the boundary between angel and demon, protector and corrupter. He was not a faceless adversary like Satan, but a named figure accused of giving humanity forbidden knowledge. To admit his influence would be to suggest that humanity's greatest struggles with violence and vanity were not solely human, but also the result of an angel's rebellion. Some legends even claim that relics tied to Azazel are secretly guarded. A piece of iron said to be linked to the weapons he inspired, or prayers written to ward off his influence. These claims remain unproven, but they reflect the ongoing discomfort associated with his name. Ultimately, the Vatican's silence has ensured that Azazel remains a shadowy figure in angelic lore. His name is absent from church services and official teachings, yet it survives in the margins of scripture and apocrypha. If the archives contain the full account of this forgotten angel, it has been hidden for centuries, a reminder of a presence the Church prefers not to acknowledge. One of the most disturbing questions about angels is the tale of the Nephilim, the enigmatic giants mentioned in Genesis chapter 6. These beings are said to be the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men, a passage that has sparked debate for generations. Were the sons of God truly angels? And if so, what does it mean that their descendants lived among humans? The Vatican has always approached this subject with caution, rarely addressing it directly. Yet scholars believe the archives contain manuscripts that explore the topic in greater depth. In the Book of Enoch, familiar to the early church but later set aside, the Nephilim are described in vivid detail. They are depicted as the children of the Watchers, giant beings who filled the world with violence and sin. Their appetites were said to be so immense that they consumed everything, even resorting to cannibalism when food ran out. Their corruption was so great that God decided the earth must be cleansed, leading to the flood of Noah. This story has long been considered too troubling for public teaching, raising more questions than answers. Some early Christian writings suggest that the Church Fathers were aware of the Nephilim, though they disagreed on how to interpret them. Were they literal giants who once roamed the earth, or symbols of human pride and corruption? Publicly, the Church leaned toward a symbolic interpretation, but privately, the question remained unresolved. The Vatican's reluctance to discuss the Nephilim openly has only fueled speculation that the archives contain more detailed accounts, perhaps even records of supposed remains from ancient times. The silence is telling. If the Nephilim truly existed, it would mean the boundary between heaven and earth was breached in a way never officially acknowledged. Angels, meant to guide humanity, would have not only intervened but intermingled, leaving a legacy that was erased but never fully forgotten. Admitting such a past would unsettle the faithful and raise concerns about whether such a breach could happen again. Legends outside the Bible often speak of ruins or bones said to be those of giants. While most are dismissed as myth, the persistence of these stories cannot be ignored. Some believe the Vatican has quietly gathered such reports, keeping them hidden rather than allowing them to spark curiosity or fear. The Nephilim remain one of Scripture's most haunting mysteries. Their shadow stretches across both history and legend, a warning of the dangers when divine beings cross forbidden lines. The Vatican's silence may be a way to protect faith, but it also conceals a question that refuses to fade. What truly walked the earth before the flood? Among the many names whispered in ancient traditions, Samael is one that evokes both awe and dread. In some writings he's called the Angel of Death, in others a prince among the fallen, and in still others a servant of God who executes judgment. His role is never straightforward, never entirely good or evil. For this reason, the Vatican has chosen to remain silent, avoiding his name in sermons and official doctrine. Yet some scholars believe that manuscripts about Samael are hidden deep within the archives, preserved but never discussed. A quiet exile that conceals a chapter of angelic history. In Jewish mystical texts, Samael is portrayed as a powerful being, sometimes the accuser, sometimes the destroyer. He is said to dwell at the edge of heaven, carrying out God's will with a stern hand. Yet, in other stories, he appears as a tempter, leading humanity astray. This shifting image has caused confusion for centuries. Was Samael a loyal servant of heaven, his harsh duties reflecting divine justice? Or was he a fallen angel masquerading as a force of light? The Vatican has chosen silence over clarity. This deliberate quiet may be due to the risk of confusion. To speak of Samael as both a divine agent and a rebel would blur the lines between obedience and defiance. The Church teaches that angels are messengers of light and demons are agents of darkness. Samael exists somewhere in between. To acknowledge him publicly would spark theological debates and possibly inspire fear or misguided reverence toward a being outside the accepted divine order. Still, evidence suggests the Vatican has not entirely ignored this enigmatic figure. Medieval scholars and theologians wrote about an unnamed angel whose duties included delivering punishment and death. These old texts sometimes contain faint marginal notes with Samael's name, written hesitantly, as if even writing it was unsettling. Some of these manuscripts survive in European libraries, while others are rumoured to be hidden in Rome, accessible only to the Church's most trusted scholars. What makes Samael especially disturbing is his close association with human death. Unlike angels who bring messages or protection, Samael appears at the threshold of death, by the bedsides of both rulers and commoners. His presence brings both fear and mercy as he guides souls from the mortal world. This dual nature has sparked centuries of quiet theological debate. By refusing to mention his name openly, the Vatican may have sought to shield believers from both terror and confusion. The Church's silence suggests that Samael was never truly forgotten. He lingers in the shadows of theology, acknowledged but unspoken, like darkness flickering at the edge of candlelight. If the Vatican archives contain his full story, it is sealed alongside other angelic secrets the Church has chosen to keep hidden. In the 16th century, European missionaries travelled far beyond Rome's reach. Some journeyed to the highlands of Ethiopia, where ancient Christian communities had flourished for centuries. Among the letters sent to the Vatican from these distant missions, one account reportedly described an encounter that astonished even seasoned clergy. The missionaries' report told of villagers who witnessed a radiant figure on a mountain ridge, a winged being wrapped in brilliant light, hovering above them before vanishing into the clouds. The priest who recorded this testimony did not dismiss it as mere legend. He wrote thoughtfully, noting the villagers' sincere belief. They described the being as immense and glowing, unlike any human they had seen. It appeared silently, with wings so vast they cast shadows over entire fields. To them it was not a ghost or a trick of the weather. They were convinced they had seen an angel. When this letter reached Rome, it was quietly archived, never shared with the wider Church. Perhaps the Vatican feared encouraging unverified stories. Perhaps it wanted to maintain the delicate balance between official doctrine and local beliefs. Regardless, the report joined countless other accounts of the strange and unexplained in the Church's vaults. The silence surrounding such stories is telling. Angels in Scripture are accepted without question. Angels in the lives of saints are celebrated, but angels seen by ordinary people in distant lands are met with institutional caution. To acknowledge too much would raise questions the Church was not ready to answer. Did angels appear not only to saints, but to common people around the world? Was heaven watching over places far from Rome, communicating through light rather than words? These were mysteries best left unexamined. Yet the story of the Ethiopian angel endures. Some believe the Vatican preserved the report because its details were too vivid to ignore. The villagers described not only the figure but the atmosphere around it, which shimmered as if filled with countless fireflies. They spoke of a scent like burning incense, though no fires had been lit. These details echo descriptions found in much older texts, linking this remote sighting to traditions in ancient scripture. If this letter truly rests in the archives, it is evidence that angels are not bound to any one people or nation. Their presence, whether rare or common, has been witnessed across mountains, deserts and cities worldwide. The Vatican may choose silence, but the villagers' testimony remains, a story of light that appeared on a mountain and vanished, leaving only wonder. In the green hills of Burma, now Myanmar, missionaries once recorded strange encounters that inspired both awe and fear. A letter believed to have reached the Vatican in the 19th century described villagers who spoke of a winged figure. He was certain of what he had witnessed, an angel. When the priest's account finally made its way to Rome, it didn't appear in any public archive. Instead, it was discreetly stored away, joining other tales of angelic encounters. The drawing itself, it said, remains hidden in the Vatican's archives, though no outsider has ever verified its existence. Scholars who have heard rumours about it describe the sketch as remarkably plain, just a few lines drawn with a careful, reverent hand. It's not surprising that the Church chose not to officially acknowledge these sightings. If they declared that a missionary had seen an angel deep in Brazil, it would spark both fervent belief and heated debate. Some would accept it without question, others would demand evidence, and both reactions could create turmoil. That's why such stories were kept private, not shared with the world. Still, the story endures. Even if the sketch and the priest's testimony are locked away in Rome, they contribute to a larger tapestry of reported encounters from across the globe. Each one reminds us that if angels appear, they are not bound to grand cathedrals or bustling cities. They may choose the most remote corners of the earth. The Brazilian priest's vision remains a quiet enigma, a solitary man in the jungle, watched by wings in the darkness, left with only faith and a drawing as proof. Whether it was a comforting vision, a dream brought on by exhaustion, or a genuine angelic visitation, the Vatican holds the answer in silence, hidden within its guarded chambers. In the late 19th century, a mysterious scroll arrived in Rome from Tibet. It was delivered by travellers who had crossed the Himalayas, claiming to have received it from monks in a distant monastery. The scroll was unlike anything missionaries or scholars had encountered before. It was written on thick, aged parchment, but the script was neither Latin, Greek, nor Tibetan. Instead, it was composed of strange symbols, unfamiliar to any known language. Some who glimpsed it whispered that the writing resembled fire, transformed into script, with curving lines that seemed to flicker in the dim light. According to legend, the scroll described a being with fiery wings, a presence that appeared to the wise men of the mountains. The account was reminiscent of angelic encounters in Christian texts, yet it originated far from Rome's influence. The monks who had safeguarded it insisted the being was neither divine nor demonic, but a messenger, a guardian who travelled between worlds. When asked about its origins, the monks said the scroll had been in their care for generations, its beginnings lost to time, though its power was never doubted. Once in Rome, the scroll was quietly examined by select priests and linguists. Some believed it described an angel, though not in terms familiar to the Church. Others thought it was dangerous, a blend of beliefs that could disrupt established doctrine. Regardless, the scroll was quickly hidden away in the Vatican's vaults, where it remains to this day. Why was it concealed so swiftly? Perhaps because it implied that knowledge of angels or similar beings existed outside the Christian world. If distant Tibetan monks remembered winged messengers, it raised unsettling questions. Could angels be known to all cultures, under different names and forms? If so, the Vatican would have to acknowledge a greater mystery connecting heaven and earth, one that transcends its own boundaries. Whispers of the Tibetan scroll still circulate among researchers, though no one outside the Vatican has seen it. Some say it was never fully translated, that even expert linguists couldn't decipher its meaning. Others claim it was understood long ago, but its contents were too disturbing to reveal. Whether legend or truth, the story of the hidden scroll carries a sense of awe. A relic from the mountains describing a radiant messenger brought across continents only to vanish into Rome's silence. During the mid-1300s, as the Black Death ravaged Europe, Rome was gripped by terror. The plague tore families apart, emptied towns, and left cities eerily silent. Amid this chaos, ancient accounts tell of a remarkable sight above Rome. Witnesses reported seeing a towering figure in the sky, a luminous being with outstretched wings wielding a flaming sword. Some saw it as a warning, others as a sign of mercy, but all agreed it was extraordinary. The figure was said to appear above Hadrian's mausoleum, a place already steeped in legend. Centuries earlier, during another epidemic, Pope Gregory the Great had seen an angel atop the same building, sheathing its sword as the plague subsided. The 14th century vision echoed that earlier event, but this time the angel's sword was drawn, its blade blazing in the night. Those who witnessed it believed the figure hadn't come to end the plague, but to remind people of their sins. Reports quickly reached the Vatican, and some documents suggest the Pope himself was deeply troubled. He ordered prayers throughout the city and processions with saintly statues through the streets. The old stories claim the vision appeared multiple times during the worst of the plague, always in the same place. Survivors remembered it as both terrifying and reassuring, a sign that even in death, heaven was near. Yet, over time, the story faded from official memory. The Church didn't deny that angels could intervene, but it also didn't keep this particular vision alive in public teaching. It was quietly set aside, perhaps because the image of an angel with a flaming sword was too frightening, too closely associated with punishment rather than protection. The Vatican, it's whispered, preserved more detailed accounts in its archives, locked away with other angelic tales. The Angel of the Black Death, as later writings called it, remains one of Rome's most enigmatic stories. Some believe it was a vision meant only for that era, a sign of both judgment and hope during history's darkest days. Others think it was a retelling of Pope Gregory's earlier vision, revived with new fear for a new age. Whatever the truth, the image of wings over the city, glowing with a fiery sword, continues to captivate the imagination. If the Vatican still holds detailed records, they remain hidden, part of the long, secret history of angels. A reminder that even in the shadow of death, heaven seemed to watch over Rome, silent but present. As the Byzantine Empire neared its end, Constantinople stood proud yet vulnerable. In 1453, Ottoman forces besieged its walls, and the city's people prayed desperately for deliverance. In the final days before the city's fall, stories spread of visions that unsettled both the faithful and the fearful. Accounts from that time describe a radiant figure moving along the city walls at night, carrying a sword of light that shone against the darkness. Some believed it was the Archangel Michael, the city's protector, appearing for one last defence. The vision inspired courage in some, but also dread, as the angel did not remain. Those who recorded the event said the light lingered briefly, pacing the walls before vanishing into the sky. When the city fell soon after, many saw this not as a sign of victory, but as a final farewell, as if heaven had revealed itself one last time before the empire's end. The Vatican received reports of this vision in the years that followed. Letters from surviving priests, travellers and merchants who escaped Constantinople brought the tale westward. Some described the figure as a blazing golden form, others as a shadow outlined by light, but nearly all agreed it was angelic. Rome handled these stories with care, as the fall of Constantinople was a profound loss for Christianity. The idea of an angel departing carries a heavy weight for believers. Some stories link this disappearance to an ancient prophecy, suggesting that Archangel Michael had watched over the city for centuries, but would leave when destiny demanded change. This departure wasn't abandonment, but the close of an era. Rome, it said, investigated these accounts, but remained publicly silent. Such an admission would mean that even the greatest cities could lose their heavenly guardians, a thought that would have troubled Europe for generations. The legend of celestial beings over Constantinople persists in hushed tones, preserved in scattered writings and folk memory. Some scholars dismiss it as panic and imagination, while others note the striking similarities among independent accounts. The Church's quiet response, as with many supernatural stories, only deepens the mystery. Did Church leaders keep more detailed records, perhaps even drawings or first-hand testimonies from priests who claimed direct encounters? If such documents exist, they remain sealed away. The fall of Constantinople marked the end of an empire and the start of a new chapter in history. Yet within that tragedy lingers the memory of heavenly wings, a fleeting glimpse of divine power that shone before fading, leaving behind both sorrow and awe. It reminds us that, even as kingdoms crumble, there are moments that hint at mysteries greater than any fortress or throne. In the spring of 1915, amid the horrors of the First World War, soldiers on both sides reported astonishing visions over the battlefields. One of the most enduring stories comes from a German hill where soldiers swore they saw a glowing figure standing tall against the chaos. They described a celestial being with outstretched wings, watching as artillery thundered and the earth trembled. For those trapped in the trenches, it was a moment of peace amid the madness, a flash of light in the darkness of war. Letters from the front recount this vision in remarkable detail. Some wrote that these beings seemed to shine, untouched by poison gas and fog. Others insisted it raised an arm as if to bless or guide. Not every soldier saw it. Those who did spoke with conviction, insisting it was not a hallucination brought on by exhaustion. The stories spread among the troops, passed from man to man as a spark of hope in humanity's darkest hour. News of the vision soon reached the Vatican. Military chaplains sent their observations to Rome, where they were quietly recorded. But the Church refrained from publicizing these accounts. Speaking openly about angels on the battlefield raised questions the Vatican preferred to avoid. Why would heaven reveal itself there? To whom was this messenger sent? Was it protecting, warning, or merely observing humanity's destruction? The angel of the German hill became part of a broader pattern. Similar stories emerged from other war zones. Sometimes soldiers described luminous beings moving through the smoke. Other times they heard voices like distant hymns, unexplainable except as mirages born of exhaustion and fear. The consistency of these accounts troubled scholars. Too many men, too far apart, described the same radiant forms. The Vatican's silence on these visions suggests they understood the impact such stories could have. An angelic sighting could inspire faith, but also division, especially in a war where both sides claimed God's favour. Acknowledging the angel of the German hill as real risked implying divine judgment or blessing in a conflict that devastated Europe. Yet these stories persist in soldiers' letters, in confidential reports, and, most carefully, in Vatican records. The story of the hill endures, a winged figure of light standing over the battlefield, neither attacking nor saving, simply present. It brought comfort to some, fear to others, and left behind a mystery the Church has never chosen to clarify. In the early 20th century, Pope Pius X reportedly experienced a vision that deeply disturbed him. Accounts from his inner circle describe the reliquary, crafted from gold and crystal, was designed not only to honour the feather, but to preserve it. According to legend, when the feather was first discovered, it began to fade, its radiance dimming, as if it could not exist in the ordinary world. Enclosing it in gold saved what remained, sealing it away so that time could not erase it completely. The reliquary was placed in the Vatican treasury, among chalices, ornaments, and other sacred relics. Why has this feather remained so secret? Perhaps because its existence raises questions with no simple answers. If it truly belonged to an angel, when and where did it fall? Was it left as a sign or taken from a being of light during some forgotten encounter? The Church has always handled such mysteries with caution, knowing that too much information might inspire awe rather than reverence. By keeping it hidden, the Vatican shields the relic from excessive devotion to something it cannot fully explain. Some believe the feather has been examined in recent times, using technology unavailable in the past. If so, the findings have never been shared. Perhaps the tests revealed only a beautiful artifact. Or perhaps they uncovered something beyond science, confirming ancient beliefs. Regardless, the silence endures. If the golden reliquary still lies in the Vatican's depths, it holds more than a relic. It holds the idea that, at some moment in history, heaven touched earth and left behind a trace of its splendour. Whether it is a fragment, a symbol, or a genuine angel's feather, it remains one of the Church's most closely guarded secrets, quietly shining in Rome's shadows. Among the many strange objects rumoured to be hidden in the Vatican's secret chambers, one relic unsettles even those who speak of it in whispers. It is said to be a robe, charred and blackened, yet never reduced to ash. The tale tells of a garment once worn by a monk who claimed to have encountered a being of fire. Living in the late Middle Ages, he described an experience that left him blind for days. He recounted praying alone in a chapel when a brilliant light enveloped him. At the centre of the light stood a figure with wings aflame. The monk collapsed, and when he rose his robe was burning, though his body was untouched. Those who later examined the robe said the burn marks remained. The cloth is dark and fragile at the edges, but it has never fully disintegrated. For centuries it was kept in a monastery as a sacred relic until it was sent to Rome for protection. Once in the Vatican's care, it vanished from public awareness. Its name appears only in fragments of correspondence between church officials, always mentioned with caution, as if even referencing it required reverence. What makes this relic so enigmatic is its remarkable preservation. Unlike ordinary fabric, which weakens and decays, the robe endures despite its age and condition. Some say that in candlelight, faint embers flicker on its surface, glowing and fading like coals that refuse to die. Others claim no flame can further burn it, as if it has already been sealed by a fire not of this world. The Vatican's silence about the robe may be intended to protect the faithful from confusion. If the story of the burning angel is true, it raises questions the Church cannot easily answer. Why would an angel appear in such a terrifying form, leaving fire instead of comfort? Was it a messenger or a warning? And why preserve the robe unless it was believed to be evidence of the event? Some scholars suggest the relic was hidden to prevent it from becoming an object of misplaced devotion. Displaying a burned garment could lead to veneration of the mystery itself, rather than of God. Yet, the Vatican's vaults have always contained such items, kept not for display but as records, evidence of events that defy explanation. If the burning robe still lies in Rome, it stands as one of history's most peculiar relics, a garment that should have perished, preserved in darkness, bearing the memory of a fire that came not from earthly flames, but from wings alight with otherworldly brilliance. A secret sealed away, yet heavy with the memory of a forgotten encounter. In a quiet corner of the Vatican treasury, stories speak of a chalice unlike any other, one that glows softly in candlelight. Unlike the ornate cups used in papal rituals, this chalice is described as simple, made of aged, darkened silver. Its uniqueness lies in the strange light that seems to emanate from within when a flame is nearby. Those who have spoken of it say the glow is not a reflection, but a pulse, as if the chalice possesses its own life. Legends claim the chalice arrived in Rome in the 13th century, brought by a bishop returning from the east. He said he found it in a ruined chapel, abandoned for centuries, where villagers reported mysterious lights at night. The bishop believed it was linked to an angelic visitation, though he never revealed what convinced him. Upon its arrival in Rome, the cup was examined and quietly placed among other relics. Since then, it has rarely been mentioned, its existence surviving only in whispers. Some who have studied the scant records suggest the chalice may have been used in rituals seeking angelic protection. Others believe it was kept not for its function, but for what it represented, a reminder that the divine can touch even the simplest objects. The light it emits has never been explained. Witnesses describe the glow as gentle and steady, like the rhythm of breathing. The Vatican's silence about this relic may be due to caution. Revealing a self-illuminating cup would prompt questions too difficult to answer. Was it touched by angels, filled with their presence? Or is it simply a natural phenomenon imbued with meaning by faith? Publicly acknowledging its existence would risk both superstition and skepticism, two things the Church has always tried to balance. Rumours suggest that, on rare occasions, Vatican scholars have been permitted to view the chalice but never to study it freely. Every account is similar. In ordinary light, the cup appears plain and old, but near a flame, its glow fills the room with warmth, gently pressing on the heart. If the glowing chalice remains hidden in Rome, it is more than a relic. It is a mystery in silver, a quiet sign of something beyond human understanding. Whether it was touched by angels or holds a forgotten secret, the Vatican has chosen to keep it concealed, locked away, where only the most trusted guardians can witness its light. There are tales of a stone kept in the Vatican's secret rooms, a stone said not to belong to this world. It is rumoured to have fallen from the sky centuries ago. Yet, unlike any meteorite, it bears strange markings. The first record appears in a 17th century inventory of items sent to Rome from European monasteries. The description is brief, noting only that it was a heavenly fragment with carvings no one could decipher. After that, the stone vanishes from public records, shrouded in secrecy. Those who have heard the rumours say the stone is smooth and glassy on one side, but carved on the other with lines forming wing-like shapes. The carvings are too precise to be natural, yet no tool of the era could have cut so deeply into such a hard surface. Some whisper that the marks glow faintly in firelight, as if the stone remembers the flames from which it fell. Others claim it emits a faint vibration, felt in the hands but never heard. The Vatican has never spoken of it openly, but the secrecy suggests they see it as more than a curiosity. If the stone truly bears winged markings, it raises unsettling questions. Was it merely a natural object that inspired faith? Or could it be something more, something linked to an angelic presence? Ancient texts often describe angels as beings of fire and light, descending from the heavens in forms both awe-inspiring and fearsome. Could this stone be a remnant of their passage through the world? There are darker theories as well. Some scholars believe the stone was hidden because of what it implied. If angels leave physical traces, they are not purely spiritual. They cross the boundary between heaven and earth in ways the Church has never wanted to define. Admitting the existence of such a relic would blur the line between mystery and matter, between faith and science. In hushed tones, it is said the stone was last seen in the early 20th century, examined by a handful of priests who left no written records. Since then, its whereabouts are known only to the Vatican's guardians. Whether it rests in a locked reliquary or is buried deeper still, no one outside their circle knows. The mysterious stone remains one of the Vatican's most disquieting secrets. A fragment from an unknown place, carved with memories of wings, kept in silence. If it is real, it may be the closest humanity has come to holding a trace of an angel, heavy with the weight of heaven, yet hidden in darkness. There is a story that the Vatican keeps a veil unlike any other, a cloth said to weep for no reason. It is not the famous veil of Veronica, nor any relic openly associated with Christ's Passion, but something quieter kept in the shadows of the archives. According to scattered accounts, the veil is thin and delicate, woven from material older than anyone can date. At first glance, it appears ordinary, a simple covering of pale threads. Yet, those who have cared for it tell of moments when drops of moisture appear along its edge, as if tears fall from an invisible face. The earliest mention comes from it's said that in his final hours, the Pope reached out as if to greet an unseen guest, murmuring a prayer that no one could quite make out. Not long after, he passed away, leaving behind a calm that seemed to settle over everyone present. Stories like this echo through history, accounts of holy figures visited by angels at the edge of death. In sacred texts, angels are often depicted as guides who lead souls into eternity. If a pope truly witnessed such a vision, it would fit within this tradition. Yet, the Vatican's silence reveals its caution. To share such a story openly could invite scrutiny or risk turning a sacred moment into spectacle. What makes this vision so moving is its timing. The Pope in question had borne immense burdens, steering the Church through storms and doubts. That his last moments were graced by a vision of light feels like a final blessing, a comfort from the other side. Whether it was an angel of death, a guardian, or simply a messenger sent to reassure, the presence left a mark too profound to forget. The Pope's final vision is kept in quiet memory, never proclaimed from the pulpit, never written in official records. Still, among those who know, it endures as one of the Vatican's most tender secrets. In his last breath, a shepherd of the Church was not alone, but received by wings of light, a mystery not announced, but preserved in silence. The Vatican guards secrets not only to protect its treasures, but to shield the faith of millions. Among the most whispered is the belief that certain truths about angels are known, but never disclosed. Some tales are too disturbing, others too wondrous, and some so enigmatic that no explanation could ever suffice. In these cases, silence becomes a safeguard, a way to keep faith untainted by confusion or fear. For centuries, cardinals and scholars have recorded encounters and relics linked to angels, carefully hidden from public view. This isn't a denial of the divine, but an act of prudence. If every strange vision or relic were revealed, people might focus on objects instead of God, or chase after signs rather than faith. The Vatican's decision to keep such secrets is often seen as a protective measure, meant to preserve pure devotion. Yet, beneath this, there's the unsettling idea that some truths are simply too overwhelming to be spoken. There are testimonies that have been set aside, locked away, because they describe angels in ways that don't fit official doctrine. Some tell of beings of fire and shadow, others of figures whose wings darken the sky. These images, though awe-inspiring, might cause believers to question whether all angels are benevolent or if some are meant to test rather than comfort. Such questions, the Vatican believes, are best left unanswered, as the truth might trouble those seeking only peace. It's also rumoured that relics are hidden for similar reasons. A feather encased in gold, a robe that burned but was never consumed, a chalice that glows in darkness, all preserved but never revealed. If these were made public, they would attract endless curiosity. Pilgrims might come not to pray, but to see. Faith could shift from the eternal to the tangible, and wonder might eclipse devotion. So, it's better to keep them hidden, allowing their mystery to quietly strengthen faith through silence, not spectacle. Perhaps the greatest secret is that the Vatican doesn't conceal angels to deny their existence, but to protect believers from truths too immense to bear. For if heaven truly leaves behind feathers, fire and light, then every life and every choice carries a weight beyond comprehension. Not everyone is ready for such a reality. In this way, the Vatican's secrecy becomes a form of guardianship. It shields not just relics and records, but the hearts of the faithful, protecting them from mysteries too deep for the mind. Whether you see this as wisdom or concealment, the silence itself is telling. It suggests that some encounters with angels are meant not for the world, but for heaven's secret keeping. In the 12th century, letters from missionaries in distant lands often contained more than reports of conversions. Some described visions and encounters so strange they were quietly sent to Rome, copied, preserved, and hidden. One such set of letters came from Ethiopia, a land with a rich Christian heritage. The missionaries wrote not only about the faith they found, but about something they couldn't explain. They described radiant figures appearing above mountain churches seen by both villagers and priests. These beings, tall and shining, had wings that gleamed like bronze. Local Christians called them guardians, protectors of their sacred places. The missionaries, unsure how to interpret what they saw, wrote carefully, choosing their words to avoid ridicule. Yet their letters were filled with awe and a hint of fear, admitting the visions were too vivid to dismiss as dreams. One missionary wrote that the air thickened as the figure appeared, and though he tried to pray aloud, his voice failed, silenced by the presence. When these letters reached Rome, they were read with care. The Vatican valued missionary reports, but such accounts were risky. If made public, they could spark curiosity that might overshadow church teaching. Were these visions truly angelic, or natural events misunderstood? To answer openly would invite debate. So, the letters were quietly archived, added to the growing collection of mysteries the Church chose to keep secret. The Ethiopian stories are especially notable because of the region's own traditions. Long before Western missionaries arrived, Ethiopian Christians had their own tales of angelic guardians, often tied to their ancient rock-hewn churches. For them, the visions confirmed what they already believed. But for the Vatican, the blending of local beliefs and missionary testimony was hard to explain. Was it a meeting of cultures, or proof that angels appear across lands and peoples in ways the Church cannot control? For centuries the letters remained hidden, mentioned only in passing by a few scholars. Their silence shows the Church's careful balance between mystery and doctrine. To acknowledge angels in Ethiopia would mean admitting that heaven's presence isn't limited to Rome, but reaches across the world in ways beyond the Church's grasp. Whether vision or reality, the Ethiopian letters suggest that angels may have watched over places far from Europe. Their wings spread above mountain churches as prayers rose from below. Kept deep in the Vatican, they remind us that heaven can touch earth anywhere, and that guardians of light are not bound by walls or borders, but move freely throughout the world. Within the Vatican's archives, there are scattered reports from missionaries who travelled east, bringing the gospel to lands full of their own mysteries. One of the most fascinating stories comes from Burma, where in the 17th century missionaries wrote about an encounter in the hills far from the cities. They reported that villagers spoke of a presence that arrived at dusk, a winged figure appearing on the peaks as the sky turned red. Some described it as tall and glowing with wings stretching across the horizon. Others saw it as a shadow, silent and immense, a watcher in the twilight. The missionaries, though cautious, admitted to glimpsing something strange themselves. One wrote of standing at the edge of a clearing at sunset, when the air grew still and a vast shape seemed to rise from the ridge. He said that when he tried to look directly, his vision blurred, as if forbidden to see too much. What struck him most was the silence. Even the birds stopped singing, and the villagers bowed as if they recognized the visitor. When these letters reached Rome, they were studied but never shared. The Vatican treated them as private testimonies, too uncertain to declare, too extraordinary to ignore. Were these truly angels in distant lands, or visions shaped by local beliefs, misunderstood by missionaries? The Church could not say. The documents were filed away, joining many mysteries too difficult to explain without causing doubt. The story of the Burmese angel highlights an important truth about the Vatican's silence. Angels are not bound to one place or people. Yet admitting their appearances in far-off lands might challenge the idea of Rome as the centre of Christian order. The missionaries believed they had seen a guardian watching over the hill people, a being that cared not for borders or languages, but for the prayers of humble villagers. Centuries later, the letters still rest in the archives, fragile and faded, but carrying the weight of a vision too powerful to dismiss. For the Burmese villagers, the presence was not strange, but part of life, a mystery accepted without fear. For the Vatican, it was a puzzle to be kept quiet, a secret that could never be fully explained without raising more questions. The winged figure in the Burmese hills remains one of the Vatican's silent mysteries, a reminder that angels, if they walk the earth, are not limited to cathedrals or great cities. They may choose the high places, the remote villages, the world's edges, where prayers rise in silence and are met by wings in the fading light. There's a peculiar document hidden in the Vatican's shadows, a story from the sea, not the land. In the 18th century, a Jesuit priest wrote about a ship that vanished on its voyage, though survivors told of a vision unlike any they'd seen. According to their account, the ship was caught in a fierce storm in the Atlantic, waves towering above the masts, wind tearing at the sails. The crew prayed desperately, expecting death, when suddenly the sky above them cleared. Through the break in the clouds, they claimed to see a figure standing on the water, immense and radiant, wings spread against the storm. Some said the being held a sword of light. Others, that it simply shone like a star. The sailors said the wind died, the waves calmed, and the ship passed safely through the chaos. Yet when they reached land, no one believed their story. Even the priest who recorded it expressed doubt, but wrote it down carefully, unwilling to let it go unheard. The ship itself disappeared months later on another journey, lost without explanation. This only deepened the mystery, as the surviving accounts were sent to Rome as testimony. The Vatican never spoke of it publicly, though copies were kept among other strange encounters with beings thought to be angels. To reveal such a story would raise too many questions. Why would an angel appear over the sea? Was it sent to save those men for a reason? Or was it just a fleeting glimpse of a greater power? Over the centuries, the story became one of many hidden tales in the archives. Scholars who have heard whispers of it say, the vision recalls the ancient belief in angels as guardians of travellers, protectors who appear in moments of greatest danger. Sailors have long prayed to Saint Michael and other heavenly defenders. Perhaps this vision was an answer to their pleas. Still, the Vatican never declared it so, leaving the story shrouded in silence. For believers, it's a reminder that even the sea is not beyond heaven's reach. Angels, if they walk the earth, may also watch over the waters, guiding ships through unseen storms. For others, it's a tale too strange, too uncertain, best left buried in history's cellars. The angel above the lost ship remains one of the Vatican's unspoken mysteries, preserved only in faded letters and quiet whispers. Whether a true encounter or a desperate hope turned into memory, it's a story that carries the weight of the sea and the hush of wings over the waves. Among the most unusual items said to rest in the Vatican archives is a scroll from far away. Brought by travellers from Tibet in the 19th century, it was given to a Catholic priest journeying through the mountains. Much of its writing was in an unknown script, but the images were striking, beings with wings of fire and halos like suns, standing between heaven and earth. The priest believed these were angels, though the villagers who brought the scroll described them in terms from their own ancient faith. When the scroll reached Rome, it was studied in silence. Scholars compared the drawings to biblical descriptions and prophetic visions, noting uncanny similarities. The wings were vast and layered, the eyes unblinking, the light both comforting and fearsome. The suggestion was unsettling. Could people in distant lands with no contact with Christianity have their own visions of the same beings? If so, it meant angelic presence wasn't limited to one culture, but known across the world in ways the Church couldn't explain. For this reason, the Vatican chose not to display the scroll. Some thought it revealed too much.